Sorry, so we're talking about murder. Is it important to the people who know what happened for the killer to be caught and brought to justice? I don't believe so because I think most murder victims were involved in things that were shisty, you know, and within the bubble of people who know what the killer did isn't that bad pertaining to the situation, you
Yeah, but
know?
often, but we're talking about these killers that are. It's not just one time, and it could be you
Oh,
next,
yeah,
and they could
yeah.
have robbed somebody else and killed somebody.
Oh, robbery killings or something else. I don't
Well,
know why
well,
people wouldn't turn in robbers. I personally don't know why people wouldn't turn in robbers.
well, even regular murders, like the thing is you have to have you set a standard in your neighborhood. So if it's a murder and you know a little bit, but it's not really affecting you, it is affecting you because now that someone can get away with a murder, another person murders, and another person murders, and no one says nothing, and then you're talking to the police like, oh, there's murders in my neighborhood every day, but the police don't care nothing. Like, well, you didn't
Oh,
say
yeah,
nothing,
yeah.
so like this whole you set the standard. So that's why you don't allow someone to murder and get away with it, and you say something because you don't want murders in your neighborhood. Because if they realize it's allowed, they're gonna do it. That's my
See
only.
that? Well, that makes sense, but people won't respect it. So I'm smart enough to understand that that makes sense, but the average person is consumed with hip hop culture. Is gonna be like, that's snitching. I'm not no snitch. But then at the same time complain about the problems inherent in the community and expect the government to solve it. So you know what's going on, but you expect the police to solve it themselves with no information from you, who supposedly is mad about the status quo in the first place. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? And me personally, I just want to get away from, I'm turned 29, I'm turned 30 in January. I just want to get away from this eternal battlefield. I've been wanting to get away, you know? But every time it looks like I might get out, I get dragged back by something stupid. And that one time, it was the police. I was rich. They arrested me. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is,
But
you know?
if you're honest about it too, like you did break the law, and they were doing. But even though some of the stuff might have been kind of shisty how they did it, but at the same time, like one thing that so like, and you know me, like when it comes to like rights and stuff, average person. But like to me, like if you're a criminal and like you get the law enforcement acts kind of shisty, like, and even if they do the same thing, like you can't really get mad because they all they did is decided to use the same tactics, even though they should be held to a higher standard, like because it doesn't just affect like people transporting or doing some shit like illegal shit. It affects people doing legal shit too, because then and you're right, it's also hypocritical on their part as well.
When they target cannabis merchants, they need to look at it like this. Was the cannabis merchant running a peaceful system? Back then, people knew they could pull up on me and they wouldn't get robbed, you know? You ain't gonna get robbed. You ain't gonna get finessed, you know? We were some good people. But
I mean,
the system it's not the system's job, I guess,
the police
to
don't differentiate.
discern
Yeah,
between this or that, you know.
they
But
just
that's fine. That's more so.
they're just gonna follow. See, that's the thing is they're
Yeah.
not going to, like you said, they're not going to differentiate. The law right now is that it's illegal, and so police are gonna. We even see like even as the cities burn, and the mayor who is partly like involved with the people who are burning the city down are telling the police to stop and stand back, and they stop and they sit back, or
These problems are so deep, it's hard to even understand what to do. Because entrepreneurs wouldn't be selling weed in the first place if there were better lanes of entrepreneurship that were readily available to the community. there were better lanes of entrepreneurship that were readily available to the community, people wouldn't be selling weed or other substances in the first place. But then everybody wants weed to be legal. Most people smoke weed. So the government not implementing that seems like tyranny. But then again, is weed really healthy for your mind in the first place? Most people say there's no negative side effects. I personally disagree after trying it, and I hadn't tried it for the longest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think that someone who smokes weed every day, with rare exceptions, I don't think they're operating at maximum capacity. They think they are, but I don't think they are. And I think if you need to put a substance in you to make you feel better about life or get through it, your life has to be horrible, and I feel very sorry for you. But so you got something that most people want to be legalized, illegal, which is tyranny. But then again, maybe the government knew better in the first place that a nation full of drug addicts isn't going to be able to compete on a global level with other nations and will fall apart and collapse.
I mean, it's not even really. Honestly, I personally think weed should be legal, regardless. Because I don't even use it. So, like, I don't even. In fact, it's to a point where I don't personally like weed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, from just watching people around me and that kind of stuff, like. Like you said, the majority of people act like retards, and they think they're smarter when they give you the stupidest, like. But that being said, it's none of my business if you want to smoke weed, like, and as long as you're not, as long as it doesn't affect me in a way, like directly, I don't care.
I just feel like the people who argue against would say it being more readily accessible and more people trying it would make it in some, I don't know, man.
But I mean, it's already readily like your kids already know who's selling weed.
Yeah, you're right.
Like there's already like, and when you legalize it, then you could still keep. I mean, it's easy. Like you just do the same thing you do with alcohol. Then you actually cut down on what you actually have to police then, because then if you say under 18, if you're under 18, you can't smoke weed. Then you have this you can bust dealers who sell to underage kids, and that opens up this whole other field where you no longer have to expend resources.
It gets so complicated, but I just think with weed we tend to focus on people who can function on it just fine, and we don't focus on the multitudes of millennials who are complete failures at life.
Well, they're already doing this shit, most of them. I mean, I didn't mean to cuss, but I mean, it's true. Like, this, especially not our generation, but like maybe like kids who, like who are now in their like 20s. Like a lot of them are retarded. Like I mean that in the actual sense of the word, where their mind is retarded and they can no longer think for themselves, or no longer care to divide issues and think about these issues. They're fine with just the status quo.
They're fine with looking out at the world and letting the world have its way with their life while simultaneously complaining that they're at the bottom in the first place.
Their way to solve problems is to have the government do that. They don't want responsible. They don't want their own responsibilities. What they want is and that's what the government. So like the more power you give the government, that's your responsibilities are the same. Is power to the government. So the more responsibilities you give away, the more power you give to the government over your lives, your individual lives, and everybody else's. So like that's why when like, oh well, these people are vaping, like, well, we need to ban vaping. These people are smoking weed, like, well, we need to keep it illegal. Like, I don't give a shit if you're smoking. If you want to vape, like, if you want to smoke a Cuban cigar, like, I don't give a damn. Like, just stay out of my way. Like, you stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. And, like, you know what I'm saying? Don't smoke and drive. And because if you hit somebody else or something, or drink or whatever, like, that does affect me. There are certain areas where when you do it, it affects me. But if you stay out of those areas, like, I don't give a damn.
It just seems that one thing the citizens are saying and they're probably right about, is it's a complete waste of time for law enforcement to target weed dealers. And when law enforcement does target weed dealers, it seems like more of a theft and a robbery condoned by the government than like an actual legitimate law enforcement operation. Because there's no moral argument that they really support against it anymore. So without the moral argument, if you're enforcing the law, at that point, you're really just being a red coat.
Yeah, I agree. And
But
I think it's a waste of time. A waste of time and resources. Like, how many unsolved murders do, and some of these murders do stem around like weed and and saying like because people.
but that's more
robbing.
like a robbery thing. That's more
Exactly.
a robbery. You can't blame the victim for running a successful business
Exactly.
and then someone wants to take it.
And I think they would say that a lot of that stems around the drugs. It does invite that stuff, but at the same.
How bad does your your lifestyle you don't have to have a bad upbringing to become a robber. You just gotta be shiesty. I don't think people understand that being shiesty is inherently evil. If you're a robber, you would be a slaver. If you're a robber, you would, any sort of villain in history, you would be if you're a robber, because you're fine with taking other people's resources and killing over them. It's essentially colonialism.
I mean, yeah, it is to a degree, but like if you think of all the places where colonialism was, when the whites were there, right? Especially let's talk about Africa. When the whites were there, the cities thrived. They had roads. They wouldn't some of these places have roads that wouldn't otherwise have roads. Even now, China is the main one building roads in Africa or in these other cities.
So we couldn't even call robbery colonialism. It would be something worse. It would be like Vikings destroying a town and taking everything and killing.
It's pillaging.
It's pillaging. You're a pillager.
Yeah, like it's not robbery.
But the same type of mainstream media that complains about ancient colonizers puts people who will rob on a pedestal and supports their content. It's weird.
Yeah, and actually that's their main thing is taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Even though in America, and they talk about and this is the thing, is that everyone is taught that they're poor, even when they're not. Because the standard, you can say being poor in America is bad, but I'd rather be poor in America than anywhere else.
Yeah, but robbers aren't taking from the rich and giving to the poor. They're normally taking from the middle class and the poor.
Well, I'm saying that they have that same theology, or not theology, that same ideology. That's right. Same ideology of theft to them, but see, they're willing to, and that's what they're going to do. And that's what you often see. They're for high taxes, which takes, especially income taxes, which takes from the taxpayer. They're for, high taxes on the wealthy, which, if you look at it, it disincentivizes being wealthy, because at some point it's going to get to the point where it's not worth it. And then it also makes the wealthy more treacherous, because now they have to do certain other things to avoid getting taxed to keep their wealth.
The problems will always be here, but it's up to a wise person to convince the individual to just search for peace and tranquility and get there and promote it. And we can probably make stuff a little bit better, but maybe there will always be some struggle.
And I just want to put this out there. When I say wealthy, I'm not talking about the 1%. Talking about if you have $100,000, $200,000, $1 million in that range. I'm not talking about, because everybody thinks about the Bill Gates and when you talk about the wealthy, and then only people who I hear say Like, oh, what do you need after? If you have $1 million, how much more money do you need after that? Like, I only hear poor people say that, and people who aren't as productive. The productive people, it's not, and for them, they're not. A lot of them aren't rich because they're seeking money. A lot of them are rich because they're productive, and they're the ones that build your factories, that employ like sometimes thousands of people at one place.
Funny you say that, because with my book project, it's the first time I actually wanted to make something productive, and I like doing it versus just chasing a dollar sign.
Yeah.
Because I actually feel like the book will work because it is productive and wasn't constructed just for a dollar sign. You know?
And you spend a lot of time in your book, and then you have other things you're working on at the same. Like, you're not just like, people don't realize that it's not just your book that you like. A lot of money goes out to making the book, advertising the book, and like, yeah, and then the artwork, everything. A lot of you're actually paying a lot of people. A lot of people are making money, like in their job. You're actually creating a job for someone and paying them. And whereas a lot of these other people are still in the idea phase, and they sit there and they smoke, and they're talking about, man, I make $1 million if I
could do this or that.
Yeah, but you're actually doing it. So thank you, because you're actually providing, like, you know what I mean, you're adding
doing it at
value.
A loss right now too. I'm losing money as I work, with the intention of gaining more money later upon project completion, But people gotta understand, sometimes you gotta work and go backwards to go forward, It's really not going backwards if you're making progress, But it may look that way when your money goes lower, and
you gotta take the risk.
Yeah, you gotta take the risk, but scared money don't make no money. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like how, I got, arrested, convicted felon now, but scared money wouldn't have made no money. You know what I'm saying?
And you're right. And me having a business as well, like, and I've had businesses in the past, and that have failed, and I had to learn. But it's true. Like, you always got to take that step out first before you can make money. And you're gonna spend, like, most times, you're gonna spend a lot of money getting started, and there's gonna be times when you're on that edge of failure. You're always walking that ledge of failure,
and you think you want to give up.
Yep, the barbarians are at the gate, and you can feel it. Like, your pocket, you about to get looted on that fall. And then, like, the next week, you're up, and you got, people are, contacting you for stuff, and you're getting stuff done. And it's like a constant, in the beginning, it's a constant, like, ebb and flow of, like you said, on the edge of chaos, and on the edge, on the edge of brokenness, and on the edge of prosperity.
Yeah.
Like, it's always that you're walking, because I could tell you, like, one thing happens wrong, like, it could be the end. But, the one thing happens right, too, and we could be good for the rest of our life. Like, it just depends as we work.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee
of success. No guarantee of success, but you still got to move forward anyway,
And this is one of those things that, like, going back to the black community, like, I hear a lot of people talking about, well, blacks can't do this because, all the stuff in slavery, and then, systemic racism. And then, but all I see is people begging white people, begging the government for them to do stuff for them. But at the end of the day, you're still going to be slaves, because at the end of the day, if you have to wait on other people to do stuff for you and you can't do it yourself, you are a slave. Because now, what happens when if
you think about, though, the whole notion that people can't come up, though, isn't accurate, because there's black millionaires being made every single day.
Yeah, because they do the stuff that and this is one of the main programs, like, this is one of the main things I want to talk about is that there can be success in the black community independent. Like, Malcolm X talks about this. Like, we need economic independence?
I think in our city we could fix the entire hood problem. I think we could fix the whole wage gap problem. I think we could fix the entire thing here because it's not huge and sprawling. It's not out of control. You
Yeah.
know, it's. I mean, it's bad, but I mean, as far as the total number of barbarians running around out here isn't huge enough that it can't be counteracted with positive forces. So my goal with my media company is I want to make it thriving and I want to make a lot of money and I want to get a lot of employees that I pay well and I want to cure our area. So at least here it can be a haven where in this city we don't got to worry about crime and violence and, you know, all the other negative stuff going on. This should be like your city as an individual person, right? Even if you're a savage right now or a barbarian or a killer, right? Your goal should eventually be to find peace and stability and tranquility and promote that because you want your city where you live to be a bastion of hope where people will come from everywhere to seek its shelter. Because if you're trying to build anything different, that's a tyrannical system, or it's a system that's going to collapse. It's not going to survive the pressures of the universe because we got to deal with not only the BS that other humans bring and other animals, we got to deal with things like natural disasters that are purely the phenomena of the laws of physics. You know, eventually the sun's going to grow so big it melts the earth.
Yeah.
How, if we're just making war, are people who are gang banging, robbing, hitting licks right now, are they thinking about the future of our descendants? Will we be able to solve all the problems in the solar system and live? Do they see an end to this battle that we're fighting? You know, is there going to be a point where after all the dead bodies, we have unification and can move forward? Because if that's not in your mind, you belong in prison, isolated, where you can't repopulate and no, you can't interact with the people who actually want to build a great nation. You know, can you be a wise king or are you just going to be a villain?
The truth is that the barbarians are always have to get. I know I say that a lot, but in like that's what I see in them. Like there's always the struggle coming, and the truth is that most people aren't. In our time, it used to be you had to struggle to survive, right? In our time, you no longer have to struggle to survive, and I think that's especially in the black community because they're always offered free stuff by the Democratic Party. Like if you look at it like vote for us, then we'll increase your welfare benefits, or vote for us if you want to do this or that. But very few of them do you ever hear like vote for me and I'm going to decrease these, but I'm going to show you how to build businesses in your communities so that you can start producing wealth in your communities and return it back to your communities. You know what I'm saying? Like black-owned businesses. And not just black-owned business. I'm talking about like where they employ, like where the majority of the neighborhood is employed by a black owner, especially if the neighborhood itself is majority black. It only makes sense that like at least 50%, and not government mandated.
So you're saying with education, nobody would have to struggle in the community?
No, I'm saying with education that a lot of people would no longer be struggling. Like it's having the knowledge to build to have businesses and do the things like think about the Asian community. They prioritize education, and how many the majority of or at least the cultures in Asia that do like China or these other countries. You know what I'm saying? And when they come here, they excel. Because they have the knowledge, like the math, the English, the ability to do taxes, the ability, like that kind of stuff. If you raise kids to do that to where the majority of kids, that's just not a, if someone knows how to do their taxes well, it's surprising now. Like, oh, well, you can do my taxes. Like we pay people for that. But imagine if you raised your community to have a basic knowledge of how to do taxes, and they could do their own taxes. They didn't have to put out that money to someone else.
You could do your own taxes on TurboTax though,
I
easily.
mean, you can, but there's still people that pay people. Like, you can do it yourself now, but like, I'm just saying, like, think of it, if the common knowledge, it was not a mystery. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could just do it because you had the mathematical skills, or you had the English.
Yeah.
Having these abilities and school.
So a lot of people in the community have dug themselves into holes that are so deep, I think they can't get out. The goal is, because a lot of the adults have completely ruined their lives. And it's going to be a struggle forever. But when you are a child, you have a chance in the school system, even if you're in foster care or whatever. If you can get straight A's, A pluses, you could get a scholarship and go somewhere. Doors could open through education.
You don't even have to go
sports.
through your school. If you can learn to read in your school and you can learn to do basic math, you can then carry yourself on. You can learn more. Once you learn basic math, you can then learn complicated math. Like, you can build yourself. It's your way up.
You actually have people who want to help you when you are a child. You have systems in place, you got to use them. Like, if you're in a bad situation when you turn 18, you should probably be looking at, if you know you're going to be in that, you should probably be looking into joining the military when you're 17. The military will look out for you, despite what anybody says. The military will give you a path up. You have opportunities as a child that adults simply do not have anymore.
And there's learning centers. There's Khan Academy. Like, there's tons of math. Like, with the internet, you have teachers everywhere.
But could everybody be a winner is the real question.
No,
is there enough room for everyone to be a winner?
It depends on how you gauge winning. Like, what is, like, to each different person, that's a different thing. And then, but the obvious answer is no.
So let's say everybody strove to be middle class.
Not everyone's going to make it.
Not everyone would make it. Do you think most people would be able to make it?
I don't know. Because I don't live in a society, like, I've never lived in a time where everyone strove to be middle class and had
because if everybody did strive and a large population of society still wasn't making it, that would disprove our theory that it's educational and intelligence barriers holding people back.
But you don't have to make it to middle class to make money, to live a good life.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, I'm not, because middle class is like, I think 70 to, or no, I think it's like $100,000, something like that.
Man,
I'd only have to make if I made $50,000 a year.
So here's another question: do you think people can find contentment in working jobs?
Yes, they could. Like, I think what it is now is, like, when people think of jobs, they think of like McDonald's or factory work, and that's because people don't have the skills they need to. Like, imagine if you're a welder, factory work is awesome, or can be awesome, or you can even go on construction sites and build those buildings where, like, when they build those, like, the schools and stuff, you have to weld those iron bars. Or, like, when you have a skill and you find that skill, it makes it that much easier to work a job, because you're no longer stuck flipping burgers.
It's hard for me to promote that aspect just because I personally despise, working. I despise it. So it's hard for me to tell someone else to, pursue happiness in a job.
Oh, I always tell, like, if you got to work, but if you have to go and do this to be able to do this, like, don't work the job to work a job. Work the job to get where you want.
Where you want to go.
If you got to pay your bills for now, and then, do what you got to do. But